we have a toggle which currently shows you an image of a moon. If I move the toggle to that or I just click it, did you notice how the background changed? The SVG arrow also changed the images. If I just pop this back, look at those 4 images, okay? They're going to change. They either go to a sepia tone, they either have more contrast, or they're brighter, or they're saturated and go to a gray kind of shade. But look at the text, look at the buttons and everything that is changing. This is done with a free bit of HTML. There is some CSS, obviously, because we are now assigning colors for light mode and dark mode. And believe me, it's a lot simpler than it sounds. And there is a code snippet as well. But this is super, super brilliant. And I can't wait to show you this. Why is any of this important? Well, it helps with web accessibility. Now, I am not a full-blown expert on it, but anything I can share with you that's going to help you out, especially with the light and dark mode, which is not a widget or a feature you get out the box with Elementor. But I am using a code snippet, but that's about it. And everything I share with you, you can get the codes for this for free and you can modify and make it work for you. So first off, let's go and address where does this little toggle come from. This sits inside a header template. There's your page, there's a header template. So if you want to have this visible and working on every page, just stick it in your header template. Or you could stick it on particular pages. This is just a HTML widget and the code you can get for free. The icons for the sun and the moon are just SVG. So if you want to modify them and you want to be a bit funky, you could take this code, stick it into ChatGPT or something else, and you can get it refined. Or maybe you're very clued up and you can just work on it. I do like to use a bit of AI to help me out. And then down here, we've got some styling options. So this is the styling for that toggle, okay? The CSS for the fonts and the images and the background and anything else that happens on the page or within your site, that is done within a separate bit of CSS. So the CSS here is just for the toggle. So if you want to modify how big the icons or how wide it is, or even the background color, maybe the color of the toggle button. So if you want to modify this, you can do. And there is even some bits down here about the transition speed. I've set it to be 0.3 and 0.2 because I felt like that worked better. If you want to have it slower, you can do. If you just want to have it more instant, just go for 0 seconds. So that is the HTML widget. You just drop in HTML, you drop this code in, and you can put it where you want. Okay, I've just put it to the right of the menu because I felt it worked better there. But there's nothing to stop you sticking it in the center or anywhere else on your page. So the first bit is the HTML. The second bit is the code snippet. And I've used a free code snippets plugin that you can get from the WordPress repository just because it's that damn good. And here's the snippet, just dark mode. I will put a proper fancier title so that when you go to get it from the video description, it will be a little bit more clearer. But what this is doing is it's kind of ensuring that everything is defaulted to the light mode from the get-go. And it's not until you click it and go to the dark mode does it then bring through the dark mode colors. And yeah, you got to do a bit of, adding each individual color in. It's easier than it sounds, okay? Sometimes I make things sound very, very complicated, and I'm really, really sorry about that. But you go and drop this in. Now, there is one other snippet I do recommend you adding as well, and that's this snippet that I have shared in earlier videos, and it's about using custom colors. So if you've got like global colors, and you got custom colors, to standardize and make it easier for them to come through, I definitely recommend you go and add this. And again, this code for the custom global adding colors is in the link as well for you to go and get hold of. I will also mention that with regards to disabling my default colors and fonts, I have ticked both boxes in the Elementor settings. This means that I don't have to keep using exclamation important. Now, if you have got these unticked, okay, that's perfectly okay. But everything I'm going to now show you with the CSS, you would have to add in exclamation important to make sure they feed through. So if you don't want to worry about the exclamation importance all the time, then make sure you go and tick this. So just to recap, got to add in the HTML widget, and then you got to add in 2 extra code snippets. Now, you don't have to use the custom color one, but I do recommend it. Makes your life so much easier. And obviously, if you don't want to use the exclamation important, make sure you tick both boxes, because by ticking them, you are disabling the default Elementor colors and fonts. Let's now get on to how it defines all the colors. The first container does not have any class names, and I also have not added in any background color. We're going to control all of the color via the CSS. if you start to add in colors here, like you go and click on style, it's like when you do fonts as well. If you go and add in the actual value and then you go and stick in CSS, that's where you got to use like exclamation important, or sometimes because you went and picked a particular color, that just overrides anything. So keep them blank. Okay, so for dark and light mode, you don't want to add any colors in. We've got a heading over here, which is a H1. There is no class name added in here. Again, I have not added in any color. I've got a H2 heading as well. I've given H2. I've got some text. I've got a button over here. Again, there is no class name added here, and I have not defined the color. You can add in a link. I mean, you're still using every item on here as you would normally do them. What you're not doing, though, is setting the style. Now, if you are going to have different styles kick in terms of the font size, again, don't define them here. You do it within the CSS because it behaves like a framework. But if you aren't going to change it, you could just set it here. I mean, in what I'm going to show you, I have set my font size as well, just to show you that when you go to dark mode, you could have it go like a bigger size, or you could have it go weightier as well. So maybe it starts off in the light mode as say 300 or 400 font weight. When you go to dark mode, you might want it to jump up to say 800 or 900 because maybe it's clearer, or maybe depending on your color scheme and you want to hit the AA or the AAA compliant standard. Over here, we've got an SVG. Again, no color has been set. You can see that there for the primary color, and there's no class name added either. Now down here, I've done something a little bit different, okay? Again, we got another container, but this time I've given it a class name of hero_banner. The reason I've done that is because maybe for certain banners or certain containers, you know, you might have some variation because they're not always going to go from white to black. I mean, they don't have to go from white to black. You might have go white to a different shade. But in this scenario, I'm saying for the light mode, the default, I don't want it to be white. I want it to actually be a different color. So I've specified a class name. And then down here, we got H1, H2, etc. Now, this particular H2, you'll notice is a purple shade. You go to advanced, and I've just given it a class name of purple. So I've got two H2s. I've got H2 over here, which is a particular color. And I got another H2 over here, but this time this is purple. So I'm going to define that again in the CSS. So if you go and set a color in the light mode and the dark mode, that's fine, but then you may say that, well, if you've got a particular class name, and you can have as many class names as you want, by the way, okay, it will now start off as a different color. So now let me show you the CSS. We're going to go over to the site settings and custom CSS, and there is quite a bit of code here. But stay with me on this, okay? It's a lot simpler, and you only make it as complex as you need to be. Now, there are framework tools out there. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. There's other plugins, there's other bits of kit you could use. But if you want to keep everything in-house, you've got the HTML widget, which is just HTML code. You've got the code snippet, which just ensures that things start off as a light mode and then they go to the dark mode when you go and toggle it to the moon and go to dark mode. And then you got this CSS code. So if you want to use a third-party plugin, be my guest. There is nothing wrong with that. And credit to all of the software developers and geniuses and wizards out there that create these amazing tools. But if you want to keep it in-house, you can do it like this. So over here, I'm saying the H1, remember we've got two H1s here, follow the light and the dark side is strong. You probably can't even see it properly because my face is covering it. So let me just remind you of what the content is. I'm saying that from the get-go, I'm going to have a font clamp calculation formula for responsiveness. And you don't have to, because in the H2, I just went and set it as 2 REM. Or you could have gone for 32 pixel, just showing you variation and how you could do it. But I've got a clamp formula, so responsiveness between, you know, your maximum minimum threshold or your desktop to your mobile, the font's going to shrink and grow. And it starts off at 900. So that's where I want it to start off. And the color is var e global color primary. If I go to my global colors, there is my primary color. And I'm just going to show you now primary, secondary, text, and accent. So I've got a range of colors there. Don't imitate my colors, please. I'm just showing you what they are. And then I've got some custom colors, purple space shade, dark_mode space yellow. I've intentionally written them like that, just to show you how that second bit of snippet I shared with you standardizes and makes it easier for you to pull through custom color, global color, custom color codes. Light, space gray, and we've got white as well. So I've got a range of colors here. So from the get-go, I want my H1s to be using the primary color. If I was to go and change this to say text, it would go that color. If I was to change it to say accent, it would go a different pinky color. Let's pop it back to primary. But then underneath, I've said .dark mode H1. So dark mode, because when you toggle it, that's the class name that now becomes activated. H1, so it touches the heading 1 or anything that's tagged with that. Go to color white. I could have picked from my global colors, but I'm just showing you that if you don't want to use that and you want to be prescriptive and just put in hex codes, so you don't want to always rely back to, well, what did you call it in your global colors? That's totally fine, because maybe you're just going to have a range of black, whites, and certain grays, and you know what the hex codes are. You could do that. So over here now, it's saying that when you go to dark mode, both of these H1s will go to white. Then we go to the H2, and I'm not going to run through these line by line, but you can see the font weight and the font. And now I'm saying start off as the secondary color. So that's what we got here. Notice though here, this H2 is not the secondary color. This has gone to a purple color. We'll address that in a moment. And then I'm saying that when you go to dark mode, I want all of the H2s to go to DODOCE. So that is a grey color, quite a common grey color I use quite a bit in websites, one of my favorites. So start off the secondary color and then go to that, except if you are the purple class. Notice it says .purple H2. So this time I've got a different font size. So before it was 2 rem, now it's 1.5 rem. The font weight is 900, so I've got a different font weighting kicking in. And I want you to use the custom color, purple_shade. By using that code snippet, it doesn't matter if you've got a space, a hyphen, or an underscore. You replace everything with an underscore just for consistency. So it will now bring through the purple shade. I could have got rid of that and just popped in a hex code. I could have got rid of the word purple shade and popped in the word primary. But it now means that it starts there. So you can have variation based on the class name. And when you get to dark mode, I want you to use dark_mode_yellow. If you remember, it was dark_mode space yellow. Replace the space with an underscore. So it will now switch to that. And then I've gone and done it for the text as well. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but you got text start off as the global text color and then go to the global white. Over here, I just put hashtag FFF, which is the hex code for white. So I didn't specify it, but down here I did. So I'm just getting you used to the variation. What about the background? So the body background color starts off as white. Everything starts off as white. However, down here, I did give it a different color. So I've said .hero banner background color EF. So if you're going to have different background colors, this is what you could do. Now, if you go and drop in an image, again, we're going to address the images in a moment. Or if you've gone and added in gradients, it depends on, did you just use the styling options that were given to you within the style for the container? Because then you might not be able to flip that unless you go and do it as a bit of CS code. So you got to have a bit of a think about that. Normally, though, it shouldn't be a major problem as long as you've ensured that your text and your background have a reasonable compliant contrast, like a minimum of AA. And I did a video as well the other day about a contrast checker code snippet that I definitely think you want to use. So back to this background, starts off as FFF, the top one, and then it goes to black. So O when you're in dark mode. And when you are the .hero banner class, you go from EF. So it starts off as that. Because I didn't set the color, I've done it in the CSS. And when it goes to dark mode, it will now go to 222. So it's a bit of a darkish charcoal color, quite a dark charcoal. What about the buttons? I've set the button to be using the white color for the font, and the background color is secondary. You can see it there. If I was to change this to be primary, you can see now that all of the buttons have gone to the primary color. When you then hover, in fact, I did a hover thing as well somewhere. Yeah, there you go. When you hover over it, I want the background color to become black. So when you hover over it, it goes black. Again, you could go and stick in one of your global or one of your other custom colors. And when you do go to dark mode, I want the color of the font to go to black. And I want the background color to be F3. It seems like quite a bit of work. But every time you add on a button now, you don't have to give it a class name. This will pick it up. So throughout the site, every time I add on a button, they're all going to have this background color. They're all going to have this font. They're all going to go black when you hover over it. So you're creating a framework for yourself. What about the menu over here? I've said that all of my nav menus start off as that color. So all of the text, as you can see there where it says home and flex grid at the top, start off as black. And when I go to dark mode, which is this bit over here, I want all of the text to go to dark mode yellow. Okay, pretty simple. By the way, I didn't do anything here intentionally, just to show you that if you don't touch it and you go to dark mode and you've set it as gray, it will just go gray because there was no H1, H2 or any text. I think this was a H3, and I intentionally did that just to show you how if you don't set it, the contrast won't look great, basically. Now we go down to the images. Now, what I've done for each of these images, if I just click on them, this is just a standard image with no class name. This image has the grayscale class name. This image has a saturate class name. And this fourth image has a sepia, or sepia, however you want to pronounce it, class name. And the reason I gave them those class names is that when we go over to the CSS, you will see that I've got some extra bit of code. So it says, depending on the class name, so for the standard image, when you go to dark mode, the brightness shrinks down, it goes to 0.7, and the contrast goes up to 1.1. You want to go for value. Basically, you can mess around the values. If you were to go and set 0, the image is basically just going to go total black in a way. And if you set the contrast to be, say, 2.5, it's going to be highly contrasted and look quite bad. When you go to grayscale, values between 0 and 1, so this then grayscales it. Saturate, you can go from 0 and you can go upwards as well. So you could go to 0.5 or 1.5 or 3.5. What that does is saturate the image a little bit. And then we've also got sepia as well, values between 0 and 1. So by setting it to 1, it applies sepia. And again, we'll see that when I go to show you the preview again. And then the final thing I've done here is with the SVG icon. So I've said Elementor icon startup as black. If you wanted to go and set a color, you could either put in a hex code or you could refer to a global color. I always feel that working with global colors is the best way to go, whether it's a standard or a custom. Because if you then realize, actually, we want to use a different shade of yellow, just change the color. I mean, if the description doesn't change, that's totally fine. It will then filter through. And then, of course, we've said that when you go to dark mode, the fill for that will now go to dark mode yellow. That is how simple it is. And I know you're going to say that's not simple at all. That's quite crazy. But if you're working with H1, H2, H3, you can cover it off. You can cover off your text as well. You don't have to do the images. You could leave your images as they are. I just wanted to show you that when you go to dark mode, you can make your images a bit more clearer, or maybe they are very bright and you want to tone them down a bit, like make them less brighter, you can do. Same with your icons, same with your buttons, you know. So if you can identify the class name for the widget, and, you know, we shared a video on like a website that had loads of class names, or you could inspect the website. You can get that class name, like over here, we've got Elementor button. That's the standard for the Elementor button. But if you're going to have two types of buttons, so one for services and one for contact me, and you want to have different styles applied, like over here, this particular button has not got a hover effect. So when I was creating the button, I added a hover effect here, but not here. But it doesn't matter because you still get the hover color. But I could have given them different class names, so they could start off as different colors. And when you go to start mode, they go to another different color, and maybe the font size changes, or maybe the weighting change. Please bear in mind, though, that over here, I didn't have to repeat it when we went to dark mode, just like over here as well. I didn't have to say font size 2, font weight 600. When you've done it once, the dark mode, all it's saying is change the color. If I wanted it to become like a different size, then I would have said font size 4. I mean, what I'll do is let me just make a point of that. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm just going to add it in, and I'm going to say font size 3 rem. Okay, so this H2 will now change in size. So let's go and hit save changes. Let's now go to dark mode. And remember, this is the one I've gone and changed the size. So now it's going to go from 2 rem to 3 rem. And you can see what it's doing. It pushes everything down a bit because the size increases. But can you see when I get, in fact, can I just pop it back so we don't get the movement? Because when we look at this and we now look at the images, can you see these are all the same image? They all start off the same. The minute we change it, that one goes grayscale That one is saturated a bit more, and that one goes to sepia. Can you see the brightness of there? And this one, the contrast has gone up a little bit, but the brightness has gone down. But you can see, just look at that image there. Look at the shirt. Okay, when I do that, can you see it's lifted a bit more? Because I saturated it a bit more. But everything can change to what you want. With a free bit of HTML, yeah, we're using a code snippet to, activate and, set what the class names become when you go and click it. And then we have got a bit of lengthy CSS, but I only say lengthy because I wanted to show you examples. And you don't have to set everything, okay? It might be certain things, but a really great example is the background. So we go white to black, whereas here it goes from a soft gray to a charcoaly gray over there. And that's because we defined it with a class name and we set the color. What do you think? Like it? Hate it? I'm Imran Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. Love to hear your feedback. Stick it in the comments. I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings.